controls it. He doesn't need to be part of the zone. He doesn't need to be part of ESPN. If there's a joint promotion who he chooses, that can happen. So he has that flexibility. No one else in the heavyweight division does. It's always, oh, they offered him. We offered $50 million to Joshua. He didn't take it. This was not the right time for the offer, and time will show what he's going to be doing, and it'll be bigger and more profit and a better career for him. He'll be active in the next 9 months. From the May 18th, he'll fight 3 times.
Yeah, just that the skill.
We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego Unpacked. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Now that Anthony Joshua has his belts back, the game plan from Eddie Hearn and AJ is to clout chase Deontay Wilder, mention his name, but the fight will not be next. Stay tuned. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. If you like to become an ESPN Plus member, use the link in my description on all my videos. It does help the channel. Now, I want to talk about this. I was going to read direct quotes. I don't even feel like doing all of that. So hopefully everyone can kind of follow along with what I'm saying. Smash the like button. I noticed since Anthony Joshua got his belts back, and I seen this coming if he were to win. He did win. He beat Andy Ruiz. There's no question that he won. Everyone's giving him his props. Some people are saying that he ran and things like that. But needless to say, he fought whatever fight that got him the victory and a win in the win column. So he got his belts back. Despite what you feel about how it all played out, he did what he had to do to avenge his loss. So salute to that. Now, this is what a lot of people feared, and I think this is why some people wanted Andy Ruiz to win. The games of Team Joshua and Eddie Hearns. Listen, Andy Ruiz, I even picked him. I thought Andy Ruiz would show up in shape, motivated, with Mexico on his back and, California, and riding the wave of success from the first fight. But he absolutely did not. And I think a lot of people were shocked by his performance. And the crazy thing is, even in this fight, there was a point where Joshua had a cut over his brow. Andy Ruiz, through lack of throwing punches, he didn't aggravate the cut. He didn't really throw too many punches. He seemed to follow. He wasn't jabbing his way in. It just was a really lazy, lethargic performance by Andy Ruiz. And from all intents and purposes, it sounds like he failed himself in the preparation, which totally isn't Anthony Joshua's problem or fault. Anthony Joshua came correct, got in shape, got the victory, period. But Ruiz didn't do himself any favors. And even though this was not a good version of Ruiz, I still seen moments where I still have questions about the future for Anthony Joshua, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I seen Jojo Diaz. He said Wilder would sleep AJ. I made a video earlier. John David Jackson, Clarissa Shields trainer, former fighter. He says that AJ needs to stay away from Wilder, so on and so forth. I could continue name dropping because a lot of people have placed their bids. Joshua did proper boxing and enough to beat Ruiz, the threat that was in front of him, so he collected his belts. But even with that in mind, from what I seen, it didn't look like that would be an effective game plan. And I don't know if the weight loss would help him versus a totally different opponent who stays in shape year round, athletic, has one punch, shut your lights off power like Deontay Wilder. Now, the thing I noticed with Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, it has already begun. We are hearing both say Wilder's name to and fro. Joshua, on his behalf, he's saying, I would love to fight Wilder. It would be great. I want to unify Undisputed. Eddie Hearn, he's saying, oh, Wilder only sold 7,000 tickets and we gave him too much press and, we made his career, whatever Eddie Hearn is saying, talking about numbers and viewership. That is still the biggest fight in the heavyweight division. Now that Joshua has his belts back, some people would argue that Tyson Fury rematch might be bigger. It just depends. But those are the two biggest heavyweight fights, needless to say. And I've already studied the game plan. You can mark this video down. The game plan from Joshua and team and Eddie Hearns is to mention his name. Eddie Hearn's going to be on the usual politician program where he talks about PBC fighters, Al Heyman, specifically Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, what he can't do. Oh, he was losing 7 rounds to Luis Ortiz, and Joshua, you've seen how brilliant he boxed. Joshua will box his ears off and then knock him out. You're going to hear these types of things, but you'll see no effort made from them to unify the belts. And again, this is what people feared. This is why people wanted change and, was hoping that Andy Ruiz could get something done. And realistically, if you look at the scheme and the setup of the heavyweight division, Joshua stalling out Wilder only hurts his career because he's the one that's coming off of a performance that people are saying he ran and I was bored and it wasn't, my favorite heavyweight fight. They're comparing his fight to Klitschko versus Tyson Fury. He himself years ago, after he beat Klitschko, ridiculed Tyson Fury in a very hypocritical video, looking back at it, saying that Tyson Fury, I don't respect that. He said Tyson Fury ran from Klitschko for 12 rounds, and I can't respect that. I can't respect it. Back in the olden days, you would storm the kingdom and take the treasure. He says Fury was basically running and he was a thief in the night and he just stole the treasure, ran out the back. And then he had to incorporate those same tactics to beat Andy Ruiz, who is 6'1.5", 6'2", and was out of shape. So the more Eddie Hearn stalls out, the more the world gets to see what the deal is. And me personally, I don't even want to hear about Dilly. That's another tactic. It's all laid out. Eddie Hearn's going to use Dillian White again as a buffer. Keep mentioning Dillian White, who's coming off not so good performance versus Marish Weck. He wasn't in his prime shape. It was a sloppy fight from both fighters. And he's going to use Dillian White as a guard dog and as a buffer and talk about the mandatory. And we've been waiting 983 days. And, you know, Joshua's side is going to act like they want to fight Wilder. But we know that's not the case. I would love to be proven wrong. You know, Joshua proved me wrong with the 7 reasons. You know, my margin of error, I didn't account for Andy Ruiz eating himself out of the titles. So I was wrong there. But I would love to be proven wrong with this and see Joshua make a real attempt next year to fight the winner of Wilder versus Tyson Fury, you know, since he's saying he wants to box him. But they're already talking about Joshua facing Usyk or more likely Kubrat Pulev. Again, Joshua, I said it before and I'll say it again, new media, we control the narrative. Joshua cannot become an American star without facing the winner of Wilder versus Fury. Fury has done a good job, you know, trying to integrate his name into the American public. He's appeared on shows like Joe Rogan. He did a little stint on the WWE. He's been on ESPN Fighting in America in Las Vegas. You know, it's not like it did no crazy numbers, but he's trying. Joshua fought one time in America, being a UK fighter, and looked terrible and got stopped. And truth be told, if we were to compare Ruiz Joshua 1 to, you know, look at Ruiz's victory, it was definitely more emphatic and entertaining and more punctuated than Joshua, who, again, he did what he had to do to win, but he played it safe and to a fault maybe. You know, some people, including myself, believe he could have done more, and the condition and the discouraged look on Ruiz's face, he could have actually stepped on the gas and maybe created a knockdown, hurt him badly, got him out of there, and then that would have done more for his confidence. But I think this was a real defining fight. They looked at it as Joshua just has to win, but I think the two Ruiz fights have definitely set Andy Ruiz, set him back for his performance because it was horrible, but it's definitely set Joshua back as well, because the perception of the knockout artist has kind of been shattered with a performance like that. Again, get the victory is the best way you know how to. That's most important, but it's still your image, it's still your brand. Wilder, meanwhile, he has 2 one-punch knockouts of the year with Brazil, a #1 rated mandatory who weighs more than him, same height, and fought Joshua, and Joshua didn't knock him out that quick. And then the same goes for his fight with Luis Ortiz, who looked very sharp. And then if you look at the dynamic, who looked more dangerous? The Luis Ortiz that appeared before you for basically 6.5, 7 rounds versus Wilder, in shape, ready to go. Like, it looked like Luis Ortiz was some of the best shape of his life with Larry Wade. And it was virtually the very opposite. If you really compare these fights that took place about a month apart in a month span, Luis Ortiz, people kept calling him old, especially UK guys like Dillian White, probably Eddie Hearn, Tyson Fury. They all mimic, and the fans, they all mocked Luis Ortiz's age. But it's so funny because while they were sitting up here calling him the old man and the 90-year-old Cuban and senior citizen, he was in much better shape and ready to bang with Wilder and gave him a challenging fight. And a guy who was younger was the one who, went the Buster Douglas route and looked totally different, had no real game plan, and didn't even come in fight shape. So just look at the dichotomy of what I'm telling you. The guy they kept saying was the old man turned up ready to fight, old man style, and came in major shape, teamed up with the UNLV track coach, and he wasn't running. He was coming with a very authoritative game plan, and Wilder had to deal with that. And he did. And he punctuated with a one-punch knockout. Meanwhile, the younger guy, that's why I tell you, age ain't nothing but a number. Because Ruiz is on the calendar, he's younger. He's much younger than Luis Ortiz, in boxer years. And he looked in way worse shape, and he couldn't even throw multiple punches. Luis Ortiz was light on his feet, etc. So it goes without saying. Joshua's stock, he got some redemption. He got his belts back. He won the belts, but I don't think he won the people's hearts with his performance. But, you got to take it how you take it. So to see Wilder go in and fight Tyson Fury again, a guy who is going to come, is they have a grudge to settle from the first fight, and then Joshua likely to fight Kubrat Pulev, or a guy who just got to heavyweight. I don't even want to hear Joshua's name mentioned with Wilder unless they're sending a contract. And it's funny because Eddie Hearn was saying that Wilder was coattailing Joshua's name. Oh, what a difference a year makes. Now they're forced to coattail off of Wilder's name, who has all the momentum in the world. He's impressing people with one-punch knockouts while Joshua is boxing and getting knocked out by Ruiz in the first fight. And again, if you look at their most recent fights, boxing is a whatever you done for me lately sport. Wilder was up against a dangerous op. People said, don't even fight Luis Ortiz again. Why are you doing this, man? You have the Tyson Fury fight lined up. And guess what he did? Against all their wishes, he still fought him, and he showed you who was better. And his opponent showed up in shape, ready to go, and had a great game plan. Meanwhile, Joshua had to rematch to try to claim his belts or let them go to the PBC side. So there was a rematch clause that was triggered. There was no rematch clause. Wilder is the champion and he won. Luis Ortiz didn't have options over the champion for a rematch clause. So it just goes to show you that Wilder is the #1 heavyweight division because he's doing things above and beyond that no one even asked him to do. Again, Wilder already knocked out Luis Ortiz in a tough fight. A very tough fight, especially that 7th round. and there was no Luis Ortiz rematch options, but yet and still he still chose to potentially mess up his Tyson Fury money by fighting this dangerous southpaw who showed up in shape. Meanwhile, Joshua had a rematch clause. That's the only reason he had options on the Ruiz, and they had to do it and bet it all again. Otherwise, they would forfeit all the belts to a rival promoter. And, you know, they took the gamble and it paid off. But with all things considered, how Ruiz looked and the level of threat Joshua was up against, it left people with a lot of questions. And I think most people believe at this point, I don't know about a year ago, but at this point, all the comments I'm seeing, except for the man fans, they're saying that, you know, Wilder's going to be too much for Joshua. But if you disagree, then you should definitely write Eddie Hearns, Sky Sports, Matchroom, and make the fight. But Wilder's clearly the A side now, and it's going to continue to get worse. Watch. It will continue to get worse because Joshua, you know, there's a new UK venue that they're talking about putting the Pulev fight. So they're going to have to keep robbing the UK fans. That's about the only fan base that will believe in a fight like that. They wouldn't dare put Anthony Joshua in America, like in Vegas or something, unless they plan on flying out like 12,000 Brits, because it would absolutely tank. America has a champion. So good luck to Eddie Hearn and DAZN. And I'm very curious to see what DAZN is planning, because if Eddie Hearn, again, a double agent, what I mean is someone who works with a company trying to break ground in the US, and he's also working with Sky Sports, a company who's established with the box office and the pay-per-views in the UK. If he keeps hiding Joshua out in the UK, it's going to be very curious to see how DAZN succeeds, especially if it's not on optimal prime time for US stations, and it's a fight like Kubrat Pulev that doesn't really appeal to US audiences, right? I'm very curious to see at $20 a month how they're going to do any numbers. Speaking of numbers, Eddie Hearn continues to talk about Wilder's numbers and 7,000 tickets and this and that, and Brazil fight sold this many tickets, but he's not telling us about any of his numbers. So the jig is up. We look forward to seeing what happens in the upcoming months and to see how Joshua deals with the pressure of needing to fight Wilder, the A side, especially after a performance like that. And like I said, I can't wait to see what DAZN is planning if their biggest stars are involved in fights like Triple G. I'm just going off of what's being talked about. Triple G versus Camille Sesmeta, Canelo versus maybe John Ryder, Caleb Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and AJ versus possibly Kubrat Pulev or Usyk. I don't think Usyk, unless he can fight Chisora or something, I don't think they'll make the AJ versus Usyk straight away. But those are the two names that are being linked to a May fight for Joshua. I don't see how those types of fights are going to succeed in the American market, you know, but we'll see. You know, we'll definitely see. But in the meantime, look forward to have Anthony Joshua do interviews and headlines and quotes about how he wants to fight Wilder, but it doesn't happen. And now I think the world knows who played the game in 2018 and made sure the fight didn't happen, because they'll continue to play the same games. And it's so apparent. Wilder, on the other hand, is fighting Tyson Fury, a dangerous foe. Luis Ortiz, a dangerous foe. And let me guess, Joshua has mandatories again. It's the same. The jig is up. It's the same game over and over and over again. Remember last 2018, Wilder said, I'll come to fight the UK. Shelly Finkel said he did an interview with ESPN, said we have a couple notes that we need clarified because the contract is not clear on these issues, and we're willing to come, take this money, go to the UK. All of a sudden, the WBA comes out and say, oh, Joshua must fight Alexander Povetkin. That's his mandatory. You guys took too long. And then the mandatory was called. So look for Anthony Joshua to have to fight a mandatory, coincidentally, you know, the WBA and the WBO, and to avoid Wilder some more. You can't make this stuff up. We Unpacked, coming to you live. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.